So on this day, like the 29th of August, every year, India celebrates National Sports Day. And it is a special occasion which is dedicated to honoring the spirit of sportsmanship or the sports spirit in this country. And in the last couple of years, maybe the last decade or so, actually, there's been more interest in sports in general. People are participating more, and there's generally more interest in sports. So it's good to get some basic knowledge about sports nutrition and how it affects the performance. So what better way to celebrate this National Sports Day than to get all this information from an expert in this field of physical education as well as sports nutrition. Sports nutrition is an important aspect when it comes to the performance of the athlete or any sports person for that matter. And along with training, it can enhance the performance of the sports person. So we are looking forward to gaining some insights into how nutrition can enhance the performance. Do the sports people need supplements, and what is good for them, what is bad for them, and also busting some common myths around nutrition, supplements, and things like that. So I'm just going to give a brief introduction of Dr. Tomar. He has a long list of achievements, awards, and honors, but I won't be able to go through all of that. Shruti, can you put the slide up, please, for me?
What?
The slide, the introduction slide.
I have to check that. Wait a second.
Yeah, Bhavani can put it otherwise. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Dr. Rakesh Tomar is currently at the Physical Education Department of King Fahd University of Petroleum and Minerals in Saudi Arabia. He's a consultant, sports nutrition, International Olympic Committee, Switzerland, honorary editor-in-chief of International Journal of Human Movement and Sports Science. He has a diploma in sports nutrition from the IOC Switzerland, also certificate course in energy balance in sports, protein for weight loss, and plant-based proteins for sports, and a fellowship in sports science and applied nutrition. He has a vast experience in teaching, about 26 years. He's a faculty in various universities in India and also has a vast research experience. He has published about 63 research papers along with a rich experience of reviewing hundreds of research papers for international journals. He's authored 3 books in physical education, and he's a speaker in several national and international conferences. He has received several awards and honors for his contribution to teaching sports and physical education, including the Service Award and Best Teacher Award at King Fahd University, Saudi Arabia. He himself is a national level athlete and has completed several marathons and conquered the mighty Kardungla Pass by cycle 3 times. So that's quite an achievement. So a very warm welcome to you, Dr. Tomar, and over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Amrita. For I am honored, and I feel very it's thankful to the organization for giving me this opportunity to share my views, my expertise, and my knowledge amongst you all. I hope we will all learn from each other, and it's as you said, it's an important day. Since it's a sports day, and what more I can ask that delivering a lecture on sports nutrition on this auspicious day. As you said, sports nutrition is not just only for the elite, but as more and more people are being physically active, especially after COVID-19. So it's more important for people to understand, how we should take all these nutrients in what quantity and what are the myths and misconceptions around them. And also, especially also for the women, nowadays the priorities of women have changed. Not just like losing weight, they go to gym, but now they are also more focused on gaining muscle mass, and other aspects. So with this, again, thank you so much, and I would like to straight away start my presentation. I will share my screen quickly, and I will be taking around 45 minutes, right, roughly,
Yeah,
to present my views. And then we can have question and answer session.
sure.
So I don't know if I go beyond 45 minutes, please let me know, because it's very interesting topic, and I don't know. So just let me know if
Sure,
it's
no
okay or
problems.
not.
I mean, we are flexible, no problems at all.
Yeah. Okay, so I choose this. I can choose many titles, but I just choose this title because I feel it makes sense, at this forum. So how nutrition can, help, enhancing performance in sports. Uh, uh, Even like being an athlete, of course, my main area, has been in research. I'm an exercise physiologist, and I'm doing doing involved in research. So, and I started running marathons, in last maybe 10 years back. So I realized, that when I start running these marathons, that how important the nutrition can be in, for any athlete or any person who's involved in exercise. So then I did some courses, and recently, 2 years back, I did, my 2 years diploma in sports nutrition from International Olympic Committee, which is the sole body of, in sports around the world, where I gained a lot of insight, in sports nutrition. So I would be sharing a few of those things here. Just a minute, I think. Yeah, I can. So we all know about sport. That's how that sports is very important, and performance to improve performance in sports. There are many factors, which are important. Of course, training is the first and foremost. We say, but anything which limits the performance, anything which is a limiting factor, it's become most important. So nutrition, although if we look at in terms of the percentage, it could be like 10% of, from the athlete's overall training, or maybe it plays only 5 to 6% role. But since it can limit the performance, so it becomes very, very important. And that's why, the sports nutrition has been, gaining a lot of importance, among athletes and, sports person, anyone, who's involved in physical activities. So let us first understand what are the ingredients, which are important to make a champion athlete, or otherwise also, to go for a training. So first of all, we need a talent, and then the person has to have enough motivation to, pursue those activities. Then training comes, and then comes a trainability. Even if you train hard, but you don't have those trainability, and you will not go beyond certain level. And of course, injury prevention, which we considered is quite important. Even if you train for 2, 3 years and then a day before the event you get injured, everything goes in vain. So these are like some of the ingredients which are like required to make a champion athlete. And then comes the nutrition, which is, as I said, is indispensable, in sports. And again, to that, supplements. And when we say supplements, that supplement word is, very, very, like it's misused in many ways. So here I want to say I will use supplement only for specific, only those which are recommended by the International Olympic Committee Medical Commission. Those are, and we'll discuss about those things. What are these supplements? Not each and everything, and that too, again, like we know, in sports, in sports training, the training is being periodized, for a year. You just can't train the same way throughout the year. So in the same way, the nutrition also has to be periodized. So this is a new concepts coming up, like nutritional periodization. So the athlete or any person who's training otherwise, cannot just eat same type of a food throughout the year or throughout his training. He has to make changes, especially in his macronutrients, like consumption of carbohydrate has to differ according to the requirement of the intensity and volume of training. And that's why, further, if you go more deep, the carbohydrate periodization is getting a lot of importance. How you periodize the intake of carbohydrate. Although if you look at among the youth, especially, or otherwise also those who are involved in physical activity, protein is something which is very important. People are, see that, okay, even I see here in, where I'm working, many youngsters come to me, okay, doctor or teacher, I want to go to the gym tomorrow morning or maybe tomorrow. So he asked me about supplements. So usually what happens, people before going to the gym, they go to the pharmacies, to buy a supplement and then or take the protein powders and then go to the gym. So protein, of course, important, but I feel in sports or in physical activity, the carbohydrate is one of the macronutrients which is very important. So you have to periodize the consumption of carbohydrate very well so that there is no chronic depletion of carbohydrate, or there is no short of energy in body, and which can otherwise affect your performance, also your health. So just to highlight more importance of sports nutrition, I want to give example of Eliud Kipchoge. I think anyone who's interested in sports must be knowing about this great man. He's the only person on the earth who has run full marathon under 2 hours. So he ran in 1 hour, 59 minutes and couple of seconds. And this he did, in 2019 in Vienna as a part of the project, not in the competition. So he is something amazing. So if we analyze his performance, what he did during that time, of course, there are many other factors, biomechanics, environmental conditions, technology was there, which allowed him to run, in under 2 hours. But other than that, it is the nutrition which played an important role, especially the optimum pre-race glycogen. Like we all know, if you go for anything, any activity above 90 minutes of duration, any competition or any kind of sports activities, you have to load your muscles with the glycogen. So that's called carbohydrate loading. So he did that, and he took bespoke drinks every 7 minutes, and then of course the supplements, like as I said in the beginning, 2 supplements which he took, that is caffeine and nitrates. And there's a lot of things happening in nitrates, like beetroot, for example. So these are 2 supplements which helped him in reaching to this this performance. And the next one is again I'm just highlighting some important points. Again, this is the importance of hydration in training or in sports. If although this example is quite old, but it's very important to understand. This is happened in 1912 Stockholm Olympics, and during that event, the temperature was 32 degrees, and conditions were quite hot. And just can you imagine, more than 50% of runners did not complete a marathon at that time. 50% in the Olympics. For example, if the 100 participants, 50 quit. But this does not happen nowadays. If we know, in Paris also, the temperatures were not very good. It was hot in Paris Olympics. And 2020 Tokyo also, the temperature, I remember it was like 31, 32 during the marathon. But you hardly see people, athletes quitting, because they are managing their hydration so well that even I am here where I am at present, working, still I am doing my exercise. So after this lecture, of course, otherwise usually this is a time for me to run. So now I will go a little late, but it's very hot and humid, but still I am able to do my exercise outside because I can manage with my hydration properly. So you can somehow, you can negate the effects of the climate and all those things with proper knowledge of nutrition. And this is another example of Francisco Lazaro. Again, it's a very long back, what he did. Many times athletes have misconceptions about certain things. So he tried to cover himself in a layer of wax. And because of the covering of the layer of the wax, he interfered with his body's sweating condition. His body overheat. Body temperature rose above 42.1 degrees Celsius. And this marathon runner, he died. He collapsed at the 30-kilometer mark. So this is how the importance of hydration is, in sports or any form of a training. Now coming to, again, in this slide, I would like to just show how nutrition can, influence certain detriments of, athletic performance or sports performance. If we look at the sports performance, it is divided into 3 broad categories. There are sports which are, dependent on strength and speed. There are sports where endurance is more, prominent, like marathon runs, 10-kilometer run, like this on football and so on. And there are sports where there's a combination of strength and endurance and speed. So if you look at, when you move towards this side, towards strength and speed, the most predominant factors are neuromuscular and mechanical, and then there are, anaerobic power, buffering capacity, lactic acid tolerance, strength, all those things. And when you move towards the endurance side, the aerobic capacity, endurance, running economy, lactic threshold, VO2 max, all those things. So like these are basically, the factors which are predominant and which in different types of sports, according to what type of sports it is. Now the point here is that all these factors, like for example, lactic acid tolerance or your total buffering capacity, aerobic power, or your strength, or your muscle hypertrophy, for example, also all this can be influenced or can be intervened, with proper nutritional, procedures. Like for example, what you see here, green, like caffeine supplements. If you take caffeine is equally, helpful, in both anaerobic power and aerobic power, and that's what we have seen in case of Eliud Kipchoge. Then sodium bicarbonate, is, let me just use the pointer where it is. I don't know. Yeah, here. Yeah. So then we have the sodium bicarbonate. This is another supplement, which athletes are taking, especially for 400-meter races, 800-meter races, or if you are involved in any exercise which has high intensity and short bouts, like judo, boxing, and all. And then again, the beta-alanine also helps, in anaerobic power. Then we have nitrate, like beetroot supplements, which can affect or influence or improve your running economy, endurance, and aerobic power. And then we have, various collagens, gelatin supplements, creatine supplement, which can help in increasing muscle mass. Then, of course, optimum hydration, iron supplements, if an athlete is anemic, otherwise it's not that helpful, Then athletes should train periodically on a low carbohydrate diet. So that's why I said, in the beginning, the carbohydrate periodization is very important. It's not that you just try, consuming same. So sometimes you have to be like low on carbs so that, you can stimulate, the glycogen storage capacity in your muscles. And then we have carnitine supplements, which again can affect aerobic enzyme activities and all. So this is like in nutshell, I'm trying to show on this screen, how the performance, in sports or the physical performance can be influenced with the help of nutrition. Now I will be discussing these slides in detail in different form, So like before that, let's see what are the current controversies in sports nutrition. Controversies means, these actually controversies help us to understand what's happening in that particular area, and they understand this is the hot topic, So nowadays, in the sports, nitrate supplementation is very hot, and, athletes are, there's a lot of research going on in nitrate supplementation, especially the beetroot. Okay. And then vitamin D supplementation also, it's gaining quite importance. How vitamin D, can will it be helpful in improving performance, or what happens if there is there a decline in performance, even if the marginal deficiency of vitamin D? Of course, we know that subclinical deficiency do affect not only health but sport, but even in the marginal deficiency, there can be some. And then sweat losses and muscle cramps. Muscle cramps is still a mystery. Even 100 years before also, there are a lot of still there's no clear etiology why muscle cramps happen. Of course, there are reasons like dehydration, other things are there, but sometimes you sleep in the air-conditioned room and you get muscle cramp in the night. So there is no fatigue. So there are many reasons, but to some extent, we are still now we are understanding that it's more than this hydration and all. The motor behavior of muscles and neurons, they are also an important, but still a lot of research is going on, but there is no conclusive one line answer to this. And then carbohydrate loading. As we all know, carbohydrate loading is very important, especially in sports in which are more than 90 minutes of duration. So nobody wants to now everybody is impatient. They want quick results, So before there was a 7 days classical approach to this. Then nowadays it's 3 days is happening. Now athletes want, no, I want to do it in 1 day. I don't have a 3 days time. And even athletes want, I want to do quickly few hours before the event. So a lot of research again going on, on carbohydrate loading. And then plant-based proteins, as we are aware that many elite athletes are now turning vegan, especially during their, towards the later part of their careers, and the probiotics And the meal timings. Meal timings is something very important. You can tell an athlete or tell a person, okay, you have to take that much amount of protein, you have to take, so much amount of carbohydrate, but the timing is very important. So even if you are an athlete or a serious gym goers, the right nutrition needs to be carefully aligned to their workouts to reap the most benefits and provide the right boost at right time. And then nutrition for the women, as I said in earlier, that women's priorities are also shifting from weight management to improving strength, increasing lean muscle mass, and boosting cognitive health. So these are the latest trends in sports nutrition. And so of course, we all understand that our diet for an athlete or for any person who is involved in physical activity should be varied and based on wholesome, food approach, which should contain fruit, vegetables, animal meats, oils, carbohydrate, beans, legumes, and it should ensure adequate vitamins and minerals along with proper hydration. But the most important here is, whenever we recommend any diet to anyone, it's the food first approach is most important. So we always cautious, athletes or any other person against indiscriminate use of dietary supplements. So the energy needs, how much energy you need. So getting the right amount of energy is very, very important. So too much energy and you will, what happens is the body fat will increase, and too little energy and performance falls and illness starts. So it's again important, so chronic depletion of energy is also, sometimes a reason for not performing well, in sports. So we all know that energy stores in our body. You can see, I don't want to just drill much on that, but like we have enough energy stores in our body, but the stores like carbohydrate, they deplete quickly, so that's why we load glycogen in our muscles if you train for more than, or if you compete in any sports which last for more than 90 minutes of duration. Now, how to calculate the energy requirements? Of course, there are many ways, many formulas are there. It is just I'm presenting some of the equations here, which are very reliable, very valid equations, widely used in sports nutrition around the world. Even some of the equations are 100 years old, but still they are valid. So first, you need to calculate your resting metabolic rate. Okay. And once you know your resting metabolic rate, then you can find your estimated energy requirement for a day. So these are the equations by which any one of the equation can be used to calculate your RMR. I think many of us might be aware about this. And then you can use, of course, there are many other equations, but I prefer these two equations, can be used, to calculate, your energy requirement. So you can use either PA, that is physical activity, these are the figures, like for male and female. If you are sedentary, you can use value 1. If you're low active, 1.12, very active, 1.25, 1.45 is very active. And for the second equation, this is the physical activity levels. These are the numbers. So once you have this with you, once you have the RMR and, this, and of course, you can use your height and weight, in these formulas, you can get, to a quite good extent, like it's a good accuracy, with these equations. So you can calculate how much energy you need. Then only you will take the nutrition. If you don't know how much energy you require in a day, how will you know that how much you have to eat? So you should know whether you require 2000 calories or 2200 calories or 500 calories or 3000 calories. According to that, you have to meet your requirement. So one of the main issues, with many of us is the low energy availability. So here, recent research have suggested that when energy availability drops below daily intake of like 30 calories per kg of fat-free mass, there are substantial impairments of metabolic and hormonal functions which affect performance, growth, and health. So your energy should not drop below, availability of energy should not drop below 30 kilocalories per kg of fat mass. Like for example, I have given here one example, like if there is 60 kg female and she has a 20% body fat, it means her fat-free mass is 48 kg. So her, for example, and that's what, if you know the case of Vinesh Fogart, she, especially in those events, athlete, they try to lose weight. And for that, they are on a low calorie diet to keep their weight, under check. And this happens, mostly, in many such sports. So because of the low energy, for example, if this girl, she restrict her, calories to 1800 calories a day, and then she is doing 1 hour exercise, which costs roughly 500 calories. So it means the energy available to her is only 1300 calories, which is well below the threshold of 30 calories per kg fat free mass. Now this girl definitely will suffer not only, her health, aspect, but also the performance in sports. So, and that is why we might hear many times that I am doing so much of exercise, I am training hard, my coach is doing well with me, but I am not performing. So the coaches sometimes they ignore, and they start working on the biomechanics and other factors, this and training, but they forget that the nutrition could be an important factor, and that's, and this is, once it becomes chronic, it takes a lot of time to recover then. Now then comes the micronutrients, like vitamins and minerals, which are very important, and what we have to understand is that in macronutrients, the most important thing is the status should be adequacy, and the intake should be always adequate. Now, anything above adequate can lead to death. Ultimately, anything, like less than adequate, it can go up to the level again for death. So important for macronutrient is that we should maintain the adequate or adequacy status. And many times, many people take these vitamins and minerals without knowing their status, whether they are low or not, whether they require or not, but they think that if I take these vitamins, my performance will improve. But it is not so, which I will show you in this next graph. This shows that, you see, when your status is adequate, then your performance is optimum. Now, if your status is low, means you're low on your vitamins and minerals, your performance will be poor, right? And if you take more than required also, then also your performance will drop. So you will, an athlete, or we can say any performance in any physical activity will be only optimum in case when you have, the status of macronutrient as adequate. So this is the effect of reduced micronutrient, nutrition on physical performance. So what happen, in sports, basically if an athlete is having a reduced nutritional status, and that can be because of two reasons. That can be because of like a low intake due to low intake of calories also, and because of increased losses. When you do vigorous training exercise, you lose many of these micronutrients and vitamins, and there is a reduced nutrition status. So because of that, there can be a subclinical deficiency of like riboflavin, iron, magnesium, and zinc. And because of the subclinical deficiency of these micronutrients, there will be decrease in endurance, there will be decrease in the time to fatigue, decrease in your work efficiency, increased ventilation, increased heart rate, decreased work capacity, and decrease in your strength. So all this will lead to further decrease in the training and increase in the time to recovery. So that's why many athletes, they take more time to recover, from the fatigue. And this ultimately will lead to decrease in performance. So this is how the reduced nutritional status of micronutrients can negatively affect the performance, physical performance. And this is another pictorial presentation of the roles of vitamins and minerals in relation to physical performance. So like thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, vitamin B6, iron, magnesium, copper, and zinc, they are needed for the metabolism of carbohydrate into energy for muscle work. So again, that is these micronutrients are very important, so that the energy available to you can be used for the muscle work. Then further, iron, copper, B6, B12, and folate are required for RBC formation here, like you can see, and they are important for transport of oxygen to the muscles. Now, zinc is another micronutrient, which is again gaining a lot of importance among sports, nutritional researchers. Okay, so it helps in basically removal of carbon dioxide from the working muscle and recycling of lactate to the glucose. So this is another important aspect which has to be like seen. And then we have vitamin C, vitamin E, then beta carotene, zinc, copper, manganese, which actually neutralize the reactive, oxygen species, that is ROS, and also prevent free radical damage in muscles and other tissues. Now let's come to the first macronutrient, carbohydrates. Now, how much carbohydrate is required, by a person? Actually, sometimes we give recommendations in terms of the percentages, that how much percent, of carbohydrate, like you should take 60 or 70% of the calories. So percentage are not that much accurate. So we should always, prescribe, the carbohydrate in absolute numbers. So if you are involved in a light training, or like low intensity and skill-based exercises, then you should take around 3 to 5 grams of carbohydrate per kg of your body weight. If you're involved in a moderate intensity training program, for example, which is around 60 minutes, then you can take 5 to 7 grams of carbohydrate. If you are involved in any training program which lasts up to 1 to 3 hours, then you should be taking 6 to 10 grams of carbohydrate. And if you are involved in any intensity, any very high intensity, exercise program lasting 4 to 5 hours, you should be taking around 8 to 12 grams of, carbohydrate per kg of body weight. So these are the requirements of carbohydrate, according to the activity you are involved. Okay. Now targets for for carbohydrate intake is like immediate recovery after the exercise. Like within first 4 hours is very important. So athlete should be taking around 1 gram of carbohydrate per kg of his body weight immediately after the exercise. Like if you are in first hour, he should take 1 gram, second hour like 2 grams, like that. So he should consume enough carbohydrate immediately after the training. So we'll come to that little later on. And now this is how the energy in your body is being utilized. And there is a misconception here. I see many people, who come to me, they want to lose weight and they say, I'm exercising, I'm training, but I'm not losing fat. So there are reasons that the way you exercise, the way you are training. You see, whenever your intensity is high, if you train at very high intensity, what will happen? So more and more, energy will come from, the muscle glycogen, right? And the less energy will come from the fat sources. So as soon as, like if you try to run fast, you try to do, very, vigorous, you increase the speed of your any activity, running or whatever you exercise you're doing. So the more and more energy, and sometimes I see people, they run, they stop, they run, they stop, they run very fast, few meters, and then again they stop and walking. So what happened whenever you again start running for first initial a few seconds, the energy will again come from the from the glycogen. So then they're not able to burn fat. Of course, they are burning calories, but they're not able to burn fat, because initial phases will come always from muscle glycogen. So if you are interested, you want to burn more fat from your body, then you have to exercise at a low intensity, say around 40% of your maximum heart rate, for example. So if you exercise at low intensity and for longer duration, then you will burn more and more energy from your fat sources. So this should be keep in mind, especially for if you are in a weight loss process. And then of course, when we are choosing carbohydrates, we have to be again careful about knowing the GI index and glycemic load of that particular food. Because according to this, you have to take, for example, if you want to take a carbohydrate just 30 minutes before the start of your exercise, then you should go with a high GI food, because you need a rapid absorption of glycogen in your blood, right? So it's very important to understand this high GI foods and low GI foods and moderate GI foods. So immediately after training, it's very important. First 45 minutes is a golden window, we say, after training or any competition, where you have to take high GI food, in enough quantity, along with some protein and hydration. And even during the exercise also, sometimes, it depends upon the duration of the exercise. You need to consume, carbohydrate, like high GI carbohydrate during your exercise, or like, for example, if you're running more than 90 minutes, then you need to take, these high GI foods, like, for example, banana, or, mashed potatoes, or you have the sports gels and sports parts can be taken. So this is important to understand when and how to take this type of carbs, okay? And again, I have seen, when people are exercising, I have seen sometimes even if you are somebody is walking for 30 minutes or 20 minutes, I see them, with a water bottle in their hand, It's okay. I'm not saying you should not drink water, but it does not make sense. Anything for 30 minutes duration, you have to drink during exercise. Even people go to the gym, and even if they're like training for half an hour, they are just taking, drinking water every 10 minutes does not make sense. So, and even if they are taking some of these, like sports bars and sports gels. So it is only beneficial when we'll talk about that in what is the duration where, eating and drinking during, or before the exercise is helpful. So these are some examples of a high glycemic food, and I think I will just skip it. And so let's come to carbohydrate loading. So carbohydrate loading is very important, but we have to again understand that not every time and every athlete needs to, do this process. So any athlete who compete intensely, mark my word, intensely, for more than 90 minutes only will get benefit from carbohydrate loading, because when you load your muscles with the glycogens, like 3 days before the event, you are increasing weight and you're making your muscles heavy also. So any activity which is less than 90 minutes it will go against, against that person. So it has to be at least 90 minutes of duration. So nowadays, the 7 days approach is no more followed, as I said in the beginning. So 2 to 3 days is enough to, super compensate, your muscles, with high glycogen. And this can be done like as I said, 3 days before, your competition by eating large amount of carbohydrates, which is like 8 to 10 grams, per kg of body weight. And at the same time, the training intensity should be reduced. So this is very important that you super compensate your muscles with glycogen. At the same time, you train at very low intensity. So this is what, athletes are doing to, load their muscles with carbohydrate. And this is a simple carbohydrate diet, recommended by the International Olympic Committee, Medical Commission. Now, what you should eat 6 hours before the competition. See, in intense competitions which last longer than 60 minutes of duration, athletes are advised to either eat during the competition or eat before. So for example, then what a person should do, he should eat like 1 to 4 grams of carbohydrate. You see, again, that depends upon the duration. If you're taking it 4 to 5 hours before, you can take low GI food. If you're taking 60 minutes before, you should go with the high GI carbohydrates. Okay, so you should eat. So 1 hour before you can take 1 gram, 2 hours before you can take 2 grams of carbohydrate, 3 hours before 3 grams. In this approach, you can follow. So this is quite important. And a pre-competition meal, should be always rich in high GI carbohydrate if you are taking it almost like 90 minutes before the competition. And again, it depends upon person to person. Some people may like going for a liquid meal, some will like going for a solid meal. So there is nothing like the solid is better or liquid is better. It all depends upon athlete to athlete, how you are training your gut, how you are training your intestine. So like you train your muscles, you have to train your gut also during your training. So anything new, if you are taking a competition, is not advisable. So carbohydrates intakes in endurance events. So like this is the amount of carbohydrate, and this also I have followed. Usually, of course, I cannot go up to 90 gram. I feel tough to take 90 grams in an hour. Usually I go with a 60 grams. So if duration of exercise is say 45 to 75 minutes, then you should be taking around roughly 20 grams of carbohydrate every hour. Okay, every hour does not mean that you just take. The frequency cannot be an hour. So frequency has to be every 15 minutes. So then you take like, like 5 grams, every 15 minutes. And if the duration is say 1 to 2.5 hours, then you should be taking roughly 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrate. And all this will be high GI food, of course. You can take CHO drinks, or you can take the gels or confection, even the taking the confectioneries or toffees and all. Rinsing your mouth with carbohydrate drink also is enough. If you cannot drink, you feel your stomach is not ready, just rinse your mouth and just throw the water out. So that will also give you a placebo effect, which does help in improving performance. And any activity lasting more than 2.5 hours, you should take around 90 grams of carbohydrate. If you're going for like long duration cycling, for example, then you should do that. So it should be then mix of carbohydrate drinks, more concentrated gels, and confectionaries. So the question is, are all carbohydrates equal? Certainly not. Not all carbohydrates are equal. Some are digested rapidly in your and absorbed, and some are absorbed slowly. So it's basically depends upon when and how you are taking these carbohydrates. Okay. So there are slow and there are fast. I said the fast are like glucose, maltose, which like bread, potatoes, breakfast cereals, and sports drinks. Slow ones are like fructose, like with milk, yogurt, lentils, and all. So which is the best to take? Depends upon a carbohydrate that does not sit too long in your gastrointestinal tract, which can be absorbed quickly and used by athletes during training and competition. So if you're taking, for example, say, as I said, 30 or 60 minutes before, then you should go with the fast carbohydrate. Is sugar bad for athletes? Certainly not. So again, as I said, depends upon the context, what you are taking, when you are taking. If you are a sedentary person, you are not doing any exercise, then sugar is of course bad. But if you are training hard and is in a competitive situation, in that case, your need for carbohydrate is very high and fiber is very low. So in such case, simple sugar is necessary and you don't have to worry about insulin response. They will get digested and absorbed very quickly. But in other situation, it is not essential. So if you're an athlete, you are training hard, you are in the middle of a competition, even if many times even I have taken a simple sugar, if you don't have anything else to take, just take simple sugar, or even after the exercise, usually your sugar level drops, So that's not a problem. Okay. So for athlete, it should be fine. I mean, point here is that we are not recommending sugar, but if you are taking, that is not a problem, right? Now, what is the shortest duration of exercise where eating or drinking during the session is worth? Now, this is a very important question. That's what I said. Sometimes I see people going to the gym with a water bottle in their hand and with some protein powder and protein shakes, and they drink, even if they exercise for 30 minutes, they are doing that. So which is not worth. So based on the research, it is roughly like 45 minutes. So between 45 minutes to 75 minutes. Now here, you have to understand when I'm saying 45 minutes, that 45 minutes of all out exercise means you are giving your heart rate is reaching up to 170, 180 beats, for example, and you are just giving all out of exercise, not just easy walking or running. So if your duration is between this, then even a small amount of carbohydrate can have performance benefit. Even just 1 gram of carbohydrate will definitely be, so whatever you take, anything above 45 minutes and anything you take will definitely have a performance benefit. But the point here is that not easy 45 minutes of running. It has to be all out. Okay, so okay, I think, yeah, that's here. All now comes to the protein. So again, protein is very fascinating, macronutrients, and it's first choice for all, especially the youth and who goes to the gym. So it is suggested that endurance and resistance training exercises may increase daily protein needs up to a maximum of 1.2 to 1.6 gram of protein per kg of body weight. Visually, we know if you're a sedentary person, and in Indian condition, I hope it's like 0.6 to 0.7 gram, should be enough. But if you're exercising, we can take 1 gram, and then depends upon your exercise level. The more you exercise, the more vigorous is your training, and more predominantly it is a strength training, then you have to increase your protein consumption. The research suggests that 1.6 gram should be enough for everyone, but normally nobody takes 1.6 gram, even though, like, if somebody asks me, then in lectures, I will say 1.6, but personally, I recommend 2 grams. So this is how things goes. So 2 grams should be enough, but certainly not more than 2 gram is required for any athlete. Even if you're involved in a bodybuilding, powerlifting, or weightlifting sports, I know athletes, since I'm in this field, I know athletes are taking usually around 3 grams of proteins per kg of body weight. So which actually does not help in muscle protein synthesis. There is no benefit on increasing muscle mass. There is no benefit on performance. It's just a misconception. Athletes are taking so high protein, which usually is not required. And of course, the well-chosen vegetarian diets can also meet your protein needs. Okay. Now, the leucine is, again, this is which everyone looks towards this amino acids. And this is when we talk about proteins, we talk about the whey proteins or protein powders. This is what every athlete is looking for. And this is very popular among the gyms, any fitness centers, the leucine, because that's the building block for a new muscle. And so here I want to show, one research which shows that, like when we compare the whey protein with soy protein and casein, so the leucine trigger is highest, in case of the whey protein. So that's why, we say, people go for the whey proteins. But whether which one is good, whey, casein, or we'll talk about that, But the point here is that the leucine trigger is highest in case of the whey protein, and it triggers, high muscle protein synthesis. Now, how much protein you can use, your muscles can utilize at one time. That is again important. And we know that usually not only in India, but all over the world also, we have seen even among athletes that, our diet normally is low on protein, like our breakfast usually is low on protein. And predominantly we take like more proteins in dinner time, and which is again a wrong way. So for optimum muscle building, you have to take around 20 to 25 grams of protein at each meal or snack, whatever you're taking, or before you go for the bed, so that you have a continuous supply of amino acids to help build your muscles. Now, for example, your protein requirement is 100 grams in a day. Okay, so how much protein, then how will you divide your protein? So what happens, usually we take like our dinner, okay, we take 70 grams of protein in the dinner, and you have taken 30 grams in your lunch. So you assume that you have taken your requirement of protein in a day, but that's not true. If you take 70 grams of protein, in one meal, so for 40 to 50 grams of protein will be waste. It will not be used by the muscles, for the muscle building process. So muscles, you can utilize only around 25 to 30 grams of protein at one time. So that's why you have to divide your protein requirements equally, in each meal. And this is what our youth have to understand, that how they should take protein. Now, muscle protein synthesis, that's what should be the timing of protein ingestion. Like, as I said, for example, if you have 80 grams of protein, how will you take it? Will you take it 40 grams 2 times or 20 grams 4 times? So the research again suggests that you should take it 20 grams 4 times in a day. That will be, much better, So is the response to the protein greater immediately post-exercise? That again, there's a question that, normally many people ask. Yes, post-exercise, the response to the protein, or muscle protein synthesis, is very high. So that's why we say, immediately after exercise, you should take some, protein, so that, you can start, building your, muscle and all those things. So what is the optimum amount of protein after the exercise? So how much protein you should take immediately after the exercise, like in first 45 minutes? So it's a bit controversial at this moment, but still the research suggests, that, or if you look at the current recommendation, it is at roughly 0.3 to 0.4 grams of protein per kg of your body weight. So this much of protein should be taken immediately after, your exercise, and especially, after, if you are involved in a strength training, like you're going to the gym or you're building muscles, then it is again important. Now, during if you are spending too much time in the gym, for example, if you're spending 2 to 3 hours in the gym, of course, then during that time also you can take, like whey protein, especially like taking, in a leucine, in the form of whey protein. It is recommended, but if the duration is too long, in the gym. But if you're spending only half an hour or something like that, then you don't need to take any protein during the exercise. So this is again just showing, in a graph, that how if you take anything, above 30 gram, there's no significant difference. You can see here 30 gram, if you take 30 gram protein, after exercise, there is a greater, muscle protein synthesis. But if you take more than 30, it's 45 grams. So there is no significant difference. So anything up to 30 grams, 20 to 30 grams should be enough after exercise. More than that, it's just not used for the purpose you're taking it. So what is the best source of protein? So again, it depends upon, of course, the evidence suggests that animal-based proteins are better protein compared to, but there's a reason for that. The reason is again, greater leucine content. So, but as I said in the beginning, the plant-based proteins are also equally good. The only issue with the athlete is that you need to consume them in large quantity, right? So, and again, you have to combine many, different, to get, all essential amino acids. But leucine is, you can get, a good amount of leucine in the maize. And a recent study I just gone through some few days back, the corn is also, high in leucine content. So which one is good, whey or casein? Or which one is best? Is it a whey protein? So because again, the whey protein is very popular. So again, it depends upon when you are taking a protein. So if you want to take a protein before sleep, then whey is not required. So you need a whey protein when you want it to be rapidly absorbed in your body. So if you want to take immediately before the competition or during your training, if it is quite longer, or immediately after the training or the competition, then of course whey protein is better. So it all depends upon, the timing and conditions when and how you are using the protein. So how much protein before sleep, and is it required? Yes, the studies suggest that it is always useful and better to take protein before sleep, before bedtime. So roughly around 30 to 40 grams of protein is suggested in the form of a casein, before the bedtime. So which will definitely help, in repair and maintenance of your muscles during the sleep time. And this is the research paper which I want to show here, how it helps. So plant-based proteins, of course, you can achieve the requirements for protein with the plant-based proteins. However, it is challenging, and we all know that it's challenging to great extent. So plant-based proteins are deficient in at least one of the essential amino acids, and usually like isoleucine or methionine. But when you combine various plant-based proteins, you can fulfill, the requirement. But it's always challenging because of the amount of, the time it required and the quantity required. And this is what is happening. This is a study which is being done, on athletes around the world, and it has been found that almost like most of the athletes, they are low on protein in their breakfasts, and the highest amount of protein they take is in the dinner time. And this is what I was saying is incorrect. So you have to distribute your protein requirements equally throughout the day. Now, coming to the hydration, how much so you have to learn first of all, hydration, there is no thumb rule. Like, I can say that you should drink 2 liters of water, 3 liters of water, nothing like that. It's all, depends upon various conditions and factors, person to person. So like you train yourself the same way, you have to learn the practical aspects of how much hydration, what type of foods, drinks, products you should take, when you take during the exercise, what modifications should be made in hot or cold environments. So these all have to be practiced during your training. So there is no one rule which fits for all. So every individual is different, and you have to, understand this throughout your training, period. Like when I go for my hard training, whenever any day, I just want to give you an example. Whenever on any hard day I go for a training, if I have to run 2 hours or 3 hours, so what I do is I check my weight before I go for my, this vigorous training. And then when I come back again, I check my weight, and then I see the difference, how much weight I lost. So basically that will tell you whether you are low on hydration. Of course, you have to take into account how much water you have drink, through your competition. And then you can calculate, how much water is required for you, during the training also, and before the training and during the day. So athletes should drink sufficient fluid with meals on the day before the competitions to ensure hydration on the morning of competition. Usually, if you have a training day or if you have a competition day, on that day it is difficult for you to maintain your hydration. So you have to start taking enough fluid, the few days leading to your competition. So do not refrain from drinking water or carbohydrate containing fluids during hours leading up to competitions. So it is recommended around 400-700 ml be ingested during 60 to 90 minutes period before the start of the event. Again, this amount can be little less also depending upon, for me, it is little difficult. And you have to keep in mind, and I have seen many times athletes, they go for running, like especially the amateurs, and after 1 hour, they have to find, a washroom, So you have to allow sufficient time for urination of excessive fluid. Okay, and how much to drink? So limit your dehydration during the workouts and the competitions by trying to drink at a rate that is close to the sweat rate. Okay, so the amount of dehydration should be limited to no more than 2% loss of your body weight. Okay, so so for example, if you are you should not be losing like 1 kg, like for maximum for 50 kg person, 1.5 kg for 75 kg person, and 2 kg for 100 kg person. So if you are losing more than this weight, it means your hydration is not proper during or before the training or before the exercise. So that is the best way to find out how much you have to drink. Now, don't drink so much that you actually gain weight during the exercise. So this also happens with some amateurs and, those who are first time involved. So many people, rather they gain weight after exercise because they drink too much, during their training or exercise, right? So when it is not possible to drink during the heavy sweat type exercise lasting longer than 30 minutes, practice drinking 15 minutes before exercise and find how much is initially feeling but comfortable once exercise begin. That is also important. So how much rehydration after the exercise? So recovery after the exercise is a part of preparation for the next exercise session, right? So replacement of a sweat losses is an essential part of the recovery process. So one should drink around 1.2 to 1.5 liters of water, which contains sodium and some glycogen. It's always better for each kg of weight loss in training or competition. So sports drinks that contain electrolytes are really helpful, but many foods can supply salt that is also needed. So little extra salt may be useful, be needed, and that can be added to meals when sweat losses are high, and salt tablets should be used with caution. So this is again important, especially if you are involved in a vigorous training. So which is the best hydration drink? Of course, I like, my personal preference is a milk, but of course there are many people who are allergic to the milk and they may not like having a milk, so they can choose other type. But according to this research, the milk is a good option as a hydration drink. I always, whenever I give my consultation to athletes or some people, I always say you should take the milk and add banana, some olive oil, and honey, and make it is a best hydration drink within first 45 minutes of exercise. It gives you protein, it gives you glycogen, it gives you needed fluid, and it's a very, very good, like you can say in first 45 minutes post exercise. Now coming to the last part, that is supplements and sports foods. So use of supplements does not compensate for the poor food choices and an inadequate diet. So I emphasize so much on this statement. So if your food choices are very poor, oh, I don't like to eat this, I don't like to eat that, or you don't eat properly, and then you try to compensate your bad food choices by the supplement, certainly that is not recommended. Many athletes ignore need for caution in supplement use and take supplements in doses that are not necessary and may even be harmful, right? So again, the supplements, you have to understand that supplements are not an alternative to the poor food choices. Okay, so supplements are recommended only over and above your adequate diets. If you are taking a good balanced diet and still you feel because of there are certain reasons athletes are not able to fulfill the requirements, then the supplements can be given. So it has to be taken very cautiously and it should not be taken indiscriminately by each and everyone. What happens usually in the gyms? Usually what happens in the gyms, people, they follow each other. Oh, the X person is taking the protein shake, I should also take. So like these things are happening. So we should not look at others because every individual is different. So there are individual differences, the training demands are different, training conditions are different, dietary habits are different. So please, we should not follow others for this. Now, again, this already I have discussed, I don't want to repeat it, like caffeine and nitrate, the two supplements which are recommended and can be taken, in appropriate doses, to improve your performance. So when you take supplement, there are three questions you have to ask yourself. Is it safe? Is it permitted in a sport? Is there evidence that it works? And if you have a tick mark, correct answer for all these three, you can take that. And if anyone is wrong, you should not take it. Simple as that. So you have to see, that no supplement is 100% risk-free. So even what you have to see, athlete must see the mislabeling, sometimes the absence or level, or low levels of stated ingredients. They are not completely, labeling is incorrect. There can be contaminations, health risks are there, So we have to be very careful before we take any form of supplements. So athletes and those who care for them should take precautions. A risk-benefit analysis is very important. So you have to see, that when you're taking these supplements, how much risk is involved and how much benefit you are getting. So benefit should overcome the risk in any case, and it should be again the worth. So use supplements only when benefit is likely. Use supplements and doses that are safe and products that are at low risk. So protein powders and supplements, does these protein powders and supplements, they work, and are they really useful or beneficial? Although an adequate intake of protein is essential for muscle growth, we understand, but this can easily be achieved from everyday food. And extra protein is seldom required. We don't need, I'm sure what our requirements can be very easily met with our everyday or the balanced food protein requirements. But still, I know those who are serious gym goers, 90% of them are taking protein powders and supplements. So the protein carbohydrate supplements may have a role as a part of post-exercise recovery plan, but whole proteins have advantages over individual amino acids. So for example, if you're taking a whey protein or if you're taking a pre-workouts, for example, many athletes take pre-workouts, which is, high in leucine amino acids. So do you want to take one single amino acid, or do you want to take a whole food which have, so there's so many questions, as I said, you have to ask before you take any of these supplements. And can a diet without pills or supplements improve my performance? Yes, these are the 5 supplements which are recommended by the International Olympic Committee, of Olympic Committee Medical Commission, and also there is a consensus from International Amateur Athletic Federation. So these 5 supplements are safe, but whenever possible, athletes' nutritional plan should be underpinned by a food first policy. This is also important. If you can get, for example, get nitrate, from a food, go for the food. But if you cannot, you feel your stomach is overfilled, you cannot eat that much. As I said, for a professional athlete, there's so many ifs and buts. So we have to, observe all those things, observe your training demands, exercise, everything, and then we recommend. So we should not just blindly follow Virat Kohli, for example. We should not just blindly follow Serena Williams. We should not blindly follow, Djokovic. They have their own things, right? And they are guided by the professionals. They have the training demand. So if somebody is taking a supplement, any elite athletes, it's not necessary that you should also be taking. So these are the 5, like caffeine, as I said before, caffeine can help, in endurance sports and short-term exercises, where, there is a repetitions. Then creatine, is again used for high intensity sports. It can to help in increasing your muscle mass. Okay. And normally you don't get enough creatine, from the food. So you take it in the form of a pills. Nitrate is important for endurance sports and high intensity, intermittent, short duration efforts. Also, it is required. You can get it, from usually this is my favorite, and I want to share one recipe. I don't know if some of you have tried. If you did not, you can make the rice, with a beetroot. It's like a beetroot rice, which looks like, reddish in color. So just, have the beetroot, and grate it, and, just fried your rice, with the beetroot, and I think this is a very good, way, like, because otherwise it's difficult to, so like in different forms you can take beetroot. Of course, their concentrates are also available. You can take beetroot juice, mix it with the orange. I usually do that. I give it to my son also. So like and otherwise also not only for sports, even for the normal person also nitrate is important to help control your blood pressure and all those things, right? Then beta alanine and sodium bicarbonate, they are important, supplements both in case of like again high intensity exercises like 400-meter race, 800-meter race, athletic events. They actually help, to delay the fatigue, and like because there's a lactic threshold, lactic acid formation in the blood in these events. So this helps actually, but we have to be again careful. You cannot just take this bicarbonate and beta alanine, otherwise if you're not training in the training your stomach or training your gut, you will sit in the washroom during the competition. So it's very important you take all these supplements during your training and get your gut used to these supplements. So I will not go into detail for these. I take a lot of time. Otherwise, these are like how much, like for caffeine, you should be taking around 3 milligrams of caffeine per kg of your body weight. So if you're 60 kilo, 180 grams of caffeine should be enough. And this can be fulfilled by taking like 2 to 3 normal espresso coffees. And remember, caffeine should be taken at least 60 minutes prior to the exercise if you want to really get benefit of the caffeine. And it works. Caffeine really works. It's not harmful. Then sodium bicarbonate, there's a protocol for how to take this. There are like, there's a loading phase, there's an acute phase in it and can be taken. But remember, be careful about the gastrointestinal distress if it does not suit you. And then there's a beetroot juice, it shows the performance definitely improves, okay, with the nitrates, okay. And this is the last one. Of course, there are last slide, and there are a lot of like I like very much this tart cherry juice. Even I have referred this to one of the under 17 champion, badminton champion of India. She has some issues, and then with supplements. So I just completely ask her to stop all supplements and come on the plant-based diet. And I recommended this tart cherry juice. And of course, there still a lot of studies are required, but this is a very good, especially for recovery of muscles, to prevent the muscle soreness, and it really helps, in athlete, in many aspects. So this tart cherry juice can also be taken, in organic form, of course. And then a number of sports, like sports, we know there are so many sports foods available, like sports bars, sports gels, are there, which contains carbohydrates, proteins, and the fluid. So of course, this is widely used by athletes, but I suggest just don't use because I'm using it, or he is using it, or she's using it, or she is taking it. I personally, I don't go for it. If I have to take carbohydrate during my training, or I usually take some bananas and some mashed potatoes. But of course, again, there are many issues of handling, how you handle it. If you take a banana, for example, half banana, you will not know exactly how many grams of carbohydrate that banana contains. You cannot, but if you take a sports bar, it will give you exact number of exact amount. So there are pros and there are cons, of these sports foods. So you have to see according to your lifestyle, according to your suitability, according to your pocket, okay? Because the cost of these sports foods always must be taken into account when using them. So they're quite expensive, So is it really worth? All those things have to be, again, as I said, everything has to be, like taken into consideration during your training process. And then you plan, I'm sure, then with these interventions, with these things, of course, sports nutrition has so many things to discuss. If we want to discuss on supplements, we can talk for 2-3 hours. I just try to give you, an overall view of few things within this 1 hour of time. And with this, I would like to conclude my talk. And thank you so much once again for giving me a patient hearing. And I hand over my, this further, to Dr. Amrita to take over the proceedings of this webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Tomar, for a very comprehensive presentation. And when we think about sports, or when we think about sports people, we generally think about the physical activity part of it. And the nutrition is so important. And the usual focus is on protein. We hear a lot about protein. There are lots of myths about use of protein and protein supplements. But, your talk sort of clarified so much about the other nutrients, the micronutrients that are needed, carbohydrates, hydration, and rehydration. All of that is very important. So thank you very much for a very detailed talk. Dr. Suweta will take questions from the audience.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Tomar. Myself being a marathoner, I think many of my queries and my reservations were also solved, especially with regards to use of carbohydrates and the food first approach. And I think I also had some clarifications on micronutrients, especially the role of zinc is really very much useful. Some of the interesting questions. So what about one of the questions raised was, I don't know in which context they asked, but what is the role of intermittent fasting for women? And I think in sports, I think, how does it,
Yeah, yes, thank you so much, Dr. Suweta. I think, you see, again, intermittent, you see, in the food, there are so many approaches, So there are so many approaches about the food. There are keto diets, intermittent fasting, and, so many diets are there. So again, these are personal choices, but I believe personally, if you are involved in physical activity, I will not recommend a person to have intermittent fasting. Because that fasting means, you take food only 2 times in a day, right? That's what I understand about that. Although I don't
know which context they asked. So
yeah. But still, in whatever context they ask, again, I think, my answer may not please a person who advocate intermittent fasting. And in sports, I don't think there is a place for intermittent fasting. As I said, if you finish your training immediately in first 20 minutes, you have to take glycogen, you have to upload your, you have to take some protein, So it does not make sense, at all in sports. Or physical activity, not only sports, if you are involved in physical activity also, I don't personally feel.
I'll probably go in the order of importance. One of the important questions I think is the role of carbohydrate guidelines for diabetics. Who are involved in sports. I think that question.
Yeah, again, even you see, I have done 2 research projects, and both are on type 1 diabetes, one for adolescent, and other one is for type 2 diabetes, which of course for adult people, and there are many athletes who are diabetic and they succeed. So the role of carbohydrate in diabetic athletes is the only thing we have to be important is, otherwise all recommendations are same. Normally there is no deviation from there. Only thing we have to see is we have to watch their blood sugar levels, especially before they exercise and during and after. That's the only that's how we have to change the requirements. Otherwise there is no change in the the quantity of recommendation of carbohydrate. Like even if you are diabetic, you will be requiring a high GI food during the competition. So because normally if you are when you start training and you're vigorous training, in the first couple of minutes, in 20 minutes, your sugar level rather drops quite below in training. So only thing is we have to be cautious, watching the sugar levels, and accordingly change like what in a normal person we do.
I think especially with the people on insulin, so probably they should look for more of low sugars rather than.
Yeah. So because sometimes even the important thing is like for other normal person is like they should not go for training if the sugar levels are low so they have to then immediately take sugar to increase their blood sugar. So all those things have to be like what we normally take care for a normal person for who's diabetic. The same thing goes for athlete. But as long as the carbohydrate recommendations are there, they remain same.
So you actually told about fat-free mass should, I mean, for a woman who is around 60 kg, if it is 20% is fat, then 48 grams of, 48 will be the fat-free mass. Somebody has asked, what is the formula to calculate the
Okay, yeah, it's okay. You see, fat-free to calculate a fat-free mass. Of course, there are manual formulas. Some of you who are from anthropometry may be knowing. Though we can use skin fold calipers, and all those things. But nowadays, I don't think in this today's technology, it's quite easy to calculate your muscle mass. We have the bioelectrical impedance. Those devices. Little bit expensive, but we have quite the cheaper ones also. You can get in around 10,000, less than 10,000 rupees. Some scales are there. All these scales can easily, to 90% accuracy, you can know your fat-free mass. You can use those, and if you are so keen, then you can spend some more money to get, accurate fat. These are like hydrostatic weighing. Through that also you can find, but there's no like mathematical formula by which you can find.
One interesting question with the recent disqualification of the wrestler, Indian wrestler in the Olympics. So, high carbohydrate food is suggested prior to training. But then what will, in case it is going to increase weight, then what is the recommendation?
Yeah. This is very, very. What happened with Vinesh Fogart? Her weight was just 100 gram over. It's okay. This is all the management. That's a part of the management. How you are. It's probably they missed on certain point. And it's not that easy. I think it requires a lot of time to discuss all those things. But of course, high GI food has to be given between the bouts. That's very important. And but whatever happened in her case, it is not that she should not be given this type of carbohydrate, that type of carbohydrate. It's all the quantity and how much she could burn in, how much calories she can burn in. I think this question is a little bit complicated to answer here.
Thank you. So two questions I'm combining. One is, we know that animal proteins, yes, are good quality, but then many of them who are on plant-based diets would like to take vegetable proteins. So some examples of vegetable sources of protein for sports person. And one more question is which are foods which are rich in beta-alanine. These two questions I just.
Yeah, for plant-based protein, as I said, there are, of course, there are so many, including lentils and all the beans and nuts, soya you can take. They are rich in, plant-based, rich in protein. But when we are talking about sports, our focus is more on a leucine, that from where you can get the high leucine content. So I think the corn is something very good. Corn and maize. Even potato also contain, some leucine. It's many people might not be knowing. So we think always aloo is aloo, but it's not. It's a magic. In sports, potato is something which is very much important. In all aspects. So these plant-based protein, which I just said, including all lentils, and all forms of nuts, red kidney beans, chickpeas, green peas are, very good source of protein. So can be taken, and you can mix it. You can mix those diets, to get like all amino acids. Second question, I just forgot what was that.
Beta-alanine.
Yeah, beta-alanine, actually, beta-alanine, is an iron supplement, which actually, you get in the form of normally take it in form of the pill, like sodium, bicarbonate. This helps actually, in delaying the fatigue. So when athlete, do high intensity training, like you are running a 400 meter, 800 meter, or playing like a boxing or judo fight or wrestling, so lactic acid, deposits are there, So to delay, this lactate threshold, the beta-alanine, is really helpful. But again, as I said, it should be practiced in training because there can be a gastrointestinal, distress because of this if you are not used to. Because these does not comes, with the from the food source. They are not, it's not easily available. So usually they are taken in the form of a pills. Like creatine also should be taken in the form of powder. Not you don't get unless you are non-vegetarian, but still
I think that question is solved. Like one person had asked about creatine. I think you've already answered that. Thank you. So the importance of calcium in sports. That's somebody else.
Yeah, calcium is because as we all know, calcium is important for our bones development and growth. So calcium plays an important role. Especially, I meet many times. I meet many people who complain about the pain in the shin. Shin bone. Shin bone is just in your lower leg. So when you especially do running and do activity on a hard surface, so calcium plays an important role for overall, in your growth cone, and that's why the vitamin D is equally important, because vitamin D, helps to absorb, the calcium in your body.
Calcium.
And to avoid it, again, that's very important, because that's very other than the hard surface, other than the shoes, other aspects, and the running technique, and but this is one factor, basically.
One question regarding what's the best way to add muscle mass?
Best way to add muscle mass is you have to go to the gym, or without gym also you have to do the resistance training. Resistance training means you have to lift some weight, whether use your own body weight to training. The ropes are there, the gym is there, weight is there. So it's like it's a protocol which needs at least 6 weeks of minimum is required for any adaptations. Along with that, you have to take a proper protein intake. As I said, around 1.6 gram of protein should be enough. If you take 1.6 gram of protein every day and you do resistance training, as I said, I'm not advocating only the gym. It can be done in various forms. If you have big books, with you 4 kg book, take the book and do the exercises sitting on your chair. There are many ways you can do what we did in the COVID. Will help you increase in the muscle mass, but be patient, give at least 3 to 4 months time.
In line with the previous question, somebody has asked, how can one reduce fat mass in female athletes without hampering their performance?
Yeah, the visceral fat, that's what everybody wants, to reduce the fat from the visceral part, from your hips and from the stomach area. So if you're hampering performance, I don't know if you are already performing well. If you are an athlete, this question will not arise first, because if you're an athlete and you are training well, you will not be having that much fat. But the fat is not something can be reduced from one part of your body. It's not that, okay, I'm exercising, I'm training, and I just only want the fat to be reduced only from my belly, or so it is in proportion. The fat will be, it will burn. But again, you can, as I said, you should do low intensity exercise, and for longer duration. When you do that, you burn more fat compared to high intensity exercises.
So what is the role of branched-chain amino acids in sports?
Yeah, BCA, it is like, basically it's a supplement where you are basically taking leucine amino acid, So BCA, of course, again, this is, again, advocating, like taking a supplement, but it should not be indiscriminately taken. If you are a professional athlete or professionals, you are playing for the country, or involved, then it should be taken in proper supervision, fulfilling your normal diet. So as I said, we can take BCA, but over and above your regular diet, not compromising on your, okay, I will not drink milk, I will not take these proteins, but I will just take BCA. BCA again is just, you're just focusing on one amino acid. What about the others? So it has to be taken in, like, integrating with your whole food, then there's no issues.
I think
and it increases muscle protein. So the role is basically, it helps, like somebody has asked how I can increase my muscle mass. So basically just, it's like I want to do certain things quickly, so it's like a fast way of doing things. But if you reach too fast at some level, you will fall also too fast. So you have to understand that.
I think we're overshooting your time for your exercise, no? So you're plodding into your time for exercise. So this last question, sir. So a lot of free radicals do form post-exercise. So how to combat this?
Yeah, that is again, we always do warm up, right? When we before start training, we are concerned there is no injury, but we forget. Then you finish your training, you just get into your car or in your bike and you go into your room, drink water and shower and go. No, you have to spend at least 30 minutes post exercise, doing some stretching, cooling down your body, bring your heart rate down. And that will help you to remove the lactic acid, from your blood faster and prevent the muscle soreness. So most of the issues what you face, next day in the training, sometimes you train very hard and then you say tomorrow, I cannot go because my legs are, like killing me. It is because you did not do proper cool down after the exercise. So you have to remove these things, what you said, you have to do all, like stretching exercises, do slow jogging, for 5 to 10 minutes, do active stretching, passive stretching also with the help of, your partner. and that's how you can prevent.
I think this is a topic which the questions will be never ending, the doubts will still be coming up. But in the interest of time, I think we should not take up your time. So thank you so much for all the explanations, and so much of clarifications. And I think there's still more, and I think there's no end for this topic. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much. And anybody interested, you can always send me a text, me a message by email or by WhatsApp. So I will be happy to answer and contact, one-on-one.
I think those queries which are not answered, probably we can contact. I'm sorry if some of the queries were not put forward to.
Yeah, there are many questions I would love to answer, but as I said, the time is, really short. So there, like once somebody asked, does right nutrition help in improving VO2 max? So please, you have to exercise for that. And I will go for a run to increase my VO2 max. So nutrition will certainly help, but along with the training. Okay.
Thank you very much.
But there's no magic nutrient like, okay, you take this nutrient, take this pill and your aerobic capacity is high. Your nitrate, as I said, the beetroot nitrate will help in increasing aerobic capacity, but along with your training. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for your time, and thank you for a very detailed presentation, and thank you for patiently answering all our questions. So thank you very much. We will share your email, and those who have any questions can maybe email you, or we can email the questions on their behalf. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. My pleasure. Looking forward. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Night.
Bye.
Bye.